Hi everyone, apologies for the radio silence. I just needed a bit of a social media detox after the release of The Dance of the Serpent, and I also gave myself a very bad haircut. Frey and McGray were on the front page of Edinburgh Evening News, and I was also featured there, which is awesome. 2 pages dedicated to Frey and McGray, and also there were quite a few serialized bits from A Fever of the Blood, with the gorgeous fan art you sent me earlier. Thank you very much for everyone who's already bought the book and read the book. I'm going to put the links down so you can read the excerpts and read the article and see the gorgeous fan art. I'd like to thank Liam Rodden for making this happen. Also Joel at Penguin and Emmett and Lucy and all the guys and girls at Orion for providing the material they needed for the publication. Obviously, all the people who submitted fan art and who have been duly credited. Also, thank you very, very much. And thanks to Darren, because he collected all the copies and sent them to me, because my mum will, of course, want one. Now back to business. Many of you have asked me if I could post something about my writing habits and how disciplined or not I am when I write. I'll attempt to give you a few tips. I know nowadays every man and his dog claim to be experts at writing. I think I have a few credentials, so I'll share what works for me, and I hope it might work for you and help you with your writing. I'm going to start by talking about the ideal conditions for writing, and then I'll also talk about things you can do when conditions are far from ideal. So first of all, I would suggest you have a designated writing time. When I started off and I didn't have a contract, I wrote whenever I could. I remember I was at the office and I did quite a bit of my writing on Outlook. So I pretended I was typing emails. My boss must have thought, oh, Oscar is working so hard. And then at the end of the day, I emailed myself that work. When I was at home, I would trim it and edit and whatnot. So that became pretty much a very good routine back then. Probably not that good for my bosses. And also it doesn't work anymore now that they know that I write and they know what I'm up to. Having a routine is a bit like a muscle. If your brain sort of knows that it's time for writing, your mind is almost there already, and it takes a little bit less time, a bit of less effort to get into the zone. This routine obviously changed when I started writing full time. I did need a proper schedule, and I started treating it as a day job, which is probably the ideal thing to do. I wrote full time for nearly 3 years, and I was producing 2 books a year, one in Spanish, one in English, so I did need the discipline. I was writing every day from about 9 in the morning till around 11 p.m. I would stop for lunch at around 12, 1 o'clock. I would also shower then, and then I would have a break for dinner and small breaks for housework. If you're writing full-time, the advice is very similar to what we've heard lately for lockdown. Follow a routine, eat well, stretch your legs, rest your eyes from time to time. It's a very, very similar advice. Second piece of advice, mix the writing with menial tasks. This was also advised to me when I was doing my PhD thesis. It's basically don't spend 8 hours non-stop writing. Try to insert housework or or your groceries or whatnot. This clears your mind. This really, really helps. Sheldon Cooper explains it brilliantly in The Big Bang Theory, how your brain is better at solving problems when it's not really thinking about the problem itself, which is counterintuitive, but it does work. I've come up with solutions to many plot holes while having a shower or having a walk. It really does help. Also, if you know you have a designated time to do these tasks and to do this housework and all the chores that are always there, and they become less of a stress because you know they will be dealt with at some point, which brings me to my next point, which is allow as little interruption as possible. For a while, I started writing at the dining room table, which was in front of my sink. And whenever there was a pile of dirty dishes behind me, just the fact that they were there was a distraction. I know it sounds petty to all of you who have children, but it really was a distraction. It was just there. Stephen King makes a very good case against distractions in his book on writing. Many of you will have read it. If you haven't, I really recommend it. He gives loads of tips. Very, very useful if you're in this for the long run. The phrase he uses is try to shut the doors, which I think is really, really good advice, not just in the room, but also time-wise. Try to have your designated writing area and your designated writing times, and tell people around you that that's your time, and hopefully they'll respect it. The past recommendations have been very ideal, that we should really try to achieve, but the world is far from ideal, I know. And I'll share a survivor still. Basically, when I was writing A Fever of the Blood, I had the brilliant idea of moving house and change jobs at the same time. Fever was my second published book, so the first book I wrote on a deadline. Those of you who've been fortunate enough to publish a second novel will know that it comes with very specific issues and stresses and pressures. I remember John Bon Jovi said, you have a lifetime to produce your first album and then no time at all for your second. Same thing with books. If you haven't published books yet, be prepared for that. Have at least an idea of what your second book will be about, because it will happen. If you get a deal, it's more likely these days to be a 2-book deal. Publishers don't like to invest in just a flash in the pan. They might even ask you before you sign a contract to give them a synopsis or an outline of your next book, which sounds awesome, but also be careful what you wish. So yes, having a deadline really changes the game. I remember during the time I was moving house, and I'll put up a photo there that shows the fabulous time I was having. The lease for my house ended, so I had to get all my stuff in self-storage, and things didn't fit, so I had to pile them up at one of my friend's flats, and literally I only had footprint for my laptop so that I could write, and also I had a long commute because I hadn't moved yet. Literally I had to find 2-3 minutes, 10 minutes to write. It was like 6 months. Basically the bulk of the book was written in that very haphazardly manner. There was no routine at all. It was pretty much, I have 5 minutes, right. Those who have read the book might remember there is a goodbye scene towards the end. And I remember vividly writing it at 5 in the morning at a McDonald's. I think I was driving to see a client or something. And I had to leave halfway through the scene because there was a creepy guy staring at me. Most likely he was staring at my laptop. It was not flattering anyway. My point is, try to find the time and the space, even if it's 5 minutes, even if you just write a sentence or a paragraph a day. It doesn't matter, it helps. It keeps the story fresh in your mind. Again, it's like a muscle. A 5-minute walk will still keep your joints from getting stiff. Also, don't think that because you're having to write in a chaotic manner, your book will necessarily suffer. Again, that brings me to my next point. God, I'm good at plotting. And the point is, use the stress. At the time I was writing Fever, I felt guilty because I thought I should be devoting more time to it, but it was just not possible. However, looking back, I think it actually helped the book. I hope you agree. It reads like a race. There's adrenaline all the time. It's like bang, 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 crisis after crisis after crisis. The tension is there from the very start, and I don't think it would have come out that way if I hadn't been so stressed myself. And that is precisely what writing should be. It should reflect your worries and your fears and your experiences. If you're feeling stressed and you're having problems, personal issues or whatever, use that for your writing. And not only will it help your book, it will also help your mind and your soul. And that's why we write in the first place. Having said that, of course, stress is not an ideal. It's not something we should be striving to get into. And you can avoid any unnecessary stress if you just have a plan. Some writers like plotting, some don't. I love plotting. I'm an engineer, so I use my Excel sheets and I love plotting. And I do it in a very detailed way. But even if you don't like to do it, just having a very, very vague general outline of your book, it really helps. You know where the book is going, you know where the story is going. And that way you can focus on the chapter and the scene and the dialogue you're writing at that moment, knowing that it will work within the book as a whole. And plotting also ties in with my last piece of advice. If you don't feel like writing, do something else. Even if you have a perfect routine, with no distractions, a lovely writing area, a lovely writing shed at the back of your garden, there will be days when the writing just won't happen. It feels like that feeling is very familiar when not a single word will come out. It's like I've squeezed everything out of my brain. As I was preparing this script, I realized I'm going to have to do a writer's block video because it's a whole issue in its own. So I will expand on this. But right now I'll tell you that if you are honestly in one of those I cannot write days, first of all, be honest and make sure it's not just procrastination, because I have that as well. And just try to do something else. Put the writing itself aside and do something still related to your book that doesn't involve actual writing. Things I do are plotting, like going back to my Excel sheet, maybe not necessarily to actually do more plotting, but just to have an overview of the story. And more often than not, I find that I've forgotten to insert certain details or dialogues or clues, and that gets me back on track. Or I can go out and address those issues rather than work on the bit that's giving me trouble. Rereading what I've done so far also helps. And actually, in general, I would recommend that you reread your entire book. I don't know, every time you hit another 10,000 words or so. It really helps just to make sure that the story as a whole is working. I do recommend that. If I need more distance, I go back to read my my research material, which for the Frey and McGray books and my Sor Juana books, it's quite a bit that there's always some research material to read. I also read other books of a similar genre by other authors. Not to steal ideas, of course, never to steal ideas. And I really like playing music as well. I create soundtracks for my books, which again, I will have on another videos. Music in particular really helps me. It gets me in the mood. It helps me come up with the dialogues and the scenes. It really helps me. Maybe different things will work for you, and the more you explore, the better you'll be able to identify what helps you in particular to get back on track. But again, I'll elaborate on that on my writer's blog video, which I should do soon. So that's my advice on writing habits and writing routines. I hope you found it useful. I hope you enjoyed the video as well. As ever, if you have any more specific questions or other suggestions you'd like to share with us, feel free to comment and type in down there. And also, I have very good news. For the next video, I'll be having our first guest in the channel. Yay! Fellow author Sally Green, who lives in my same town. She's responsible for the awesome Smoke Thieves trilogy, and also the amazing Half Bad series, which I love and which has been translated into like 55 million languages. We'll be having a socially distanced chat, so if you like her books and you want to ask her any questions, let me know, comments, or you know where to find me. Come back and check the channel, subscribe and stuff, and be happy.